Hello all and a loyal audience of ETV, our weekly special program. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the sociology of the Horn of Africa. In connection with this topic, I am joined by my guest, the former Deputy Director General of Horn of Africa Research Institute and the now State Minister of Ministry of Irrigation and Lowlands, Dr. Birhanu Lenjiso. We are going to see in-depth analysis about the geopolitics of the Horn of Africa. Please do stay with us. I am Ogayo Molina. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much, my guest, for your precious time.
Thank you.
Right, let me start from the first question. As we have known, like the Horn of Africa is a very volatile, strategic and fragile region. So the security and the peace in the Horn is very crucial for the rest of the world. So what does it mean, the peace of the Horn of Africa for the rest of the world?
Thank you, Ogayo. I think I have to appreciate the question first. It is, I believe it is very critical to reflect on this topic, not only because of the significance of peace in the Horn to the rest of the world, but also because I believe this is a very important topic that we don't often talk about. Peace in the Horn is a national security agenda in other countries, like for example in the United States. But we don't often talk about it being the heartland of this region. And I would like to start reflecting on this question by first calling on our geopolitical expertise to enlighten our people more on this topic. What it means to be on the Horn of Africa, what challenges it poses, and what opportunities we can see in the future. That being said, I will try to briefly give you my opinion on the significance of peace in the Horn of Africa for the rest of the world. It is very significant, obviously, and the significance of peace in the Horn of Africa very much mirrors the significance of the Horn of Africa itself to the rest of the world. There are two contradicting perspectives on the Horn of Africa in general. The first perspective is a more positive perspective that looks at the Horn of Africa as a very strategic location, very strategic geopolitical location. It is indeed a very strategic geopolitical location because it borders a very long and strategic trade route that starts from Indian Ocean, passes through the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, and then goes to Suez Canal, all the way to the Mediterranean Ocean. This route is a very important route, a very important trade route, especially for the developed world. So that makes this location very strategic, very important. The Horn of Africa can also be considered as a capital city of a marine power, marine superpowers, because this is where they meet. You know, the marine superpowers meet around the Red Sea, so they consider it as their capital city, obviously. The third is it is very close to the source of oil, Saudi Arabia. Fourth, that we shouldn't underestimate, is the Horn of Africa is a source of Nile water, a very controversial water that actually makes, the heart of hydropolitics. So all this summed up together make the Horn of Africa a very, very strategic location. Many superpowers, especially the developed countries, have interest on this region. So that is one perspective. The second, and probably a more loud perspective on the Horn of Africa, is a more sad one, that many look at it as conflict-prone, drought-prone, volatile and fragile region. This perspective also have behind it that this region needs support, needs intervention. So this perspective also attracts the Western countries especially. It attracts their attention towards the Horn of Africa. So these are contradictory, they look like contradictory, but also there is another dilemma behind that, a question whether the conflict-prone, the volatile, and the fragile nature of the Horn of Africa is the result of the fact that it is strategic location, the fact that it attracts the attention of the Western countries or not. But anyways, it is a very, very important location, a very strategic location. And stability, peace in this region means a lot to the rest of the world. It is not only for countries who are in this region, but also to the rest of the world who have interest in this region. Then, having that as a background, the definition of the Horn itself is a very problematic issue. The way people define Horn, changes from time to time, vary from time to time. For example, traditionally, countries in the Horn of Africa are Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. Only these four used to constitute what is known as the Horn of Africa. But later, I think, Sudan and the South Sudan become the member, and now Kenya is part of the Horn. And sometimes it stretches to include all IGAD member countries, COMESA member countries, East African Community. So it changes from time to time. There is no clear definition as to who is the member of the Horn and who is not. And the definition is external. It comes from elsewhere. Huh? All these are, all this make the region a bit unclear. As I said, it adds to the volatility and the fragility of the region. But in general, peace in the Horn, at least theoretically, is very important to the rest of the world. So the significance of peace in the Horn of Africa is well taken, and the fact that the Western countries have their, attention on this region is to secure their own, geopolitical interests.
I would like to appreciate for your deep and in-depth analysis and description about the Horn. But moving to the second question, what do you think, or what is the role of foreign actors in spoiling as we are building the peace in the region or in the Horn of Africa?
As I said earlier, this region is a very important region for the rest of the world as well. And many Western countries, especially the developed countries, have interest in this region. That means they obviously intervene. They obviously want to know what is happening in this region. If I have to use a more strong language, some say the East African region is a battleground for foreign actors. And a very good example for that is what is happening in Djibouti. If you look at the small Djibouti, for example, all the strong actors, foreign actors, countries that consider themselves as superpowers, have their military bases in Djibouti. And some say up in the air in Djibouti, the spirit of war is already, surfacing. Why are these foreign powers in Djibouti? Why are they having their military base in Djibouti? And what can they do with their military bases in Djibouti and in the region? If you can find the answer for this question, you can already answer your question. But in general, the foreign actors have their own intention. As far as I'm concerned, the concept foreign actors are very much associated with self-interests. They have a reason why they are here. So, for the question, how can the foreign actors build peace or spoil peace in the region? It all depends on their intention. It all depends on their interest. So the big question here is, what is their interest? Do they want to build peace in the region, or they want to spoil? And for that, there's another question. Which one serves their interest better? Spoiling the peace or building the peace? It all depends on that. But in general, we can generally say foreign actors can contribute positively toward this peace building. They did that elsewhere before. If you take, for example, World War I and World War II, the United States has played a significant role in terms of stopping war, ending war. But they can also spoil if they want. So, to answer this question, again, I will take you back to Djibouti's case. What is the intention of these powers who are having military base in Djibouti? To build peace or to spoil peace? So, that is, we don't have a straightforward answer for this question, but we can generally say that they can contribute toward this peace building if they want it, if they support it. They can also spoil it if they want. Probably what is very important here is, what can we do? What can countries and states in the region can do to build their peace, to have control of their own destiny? That is more important. Because if they have that clear vision, if they have a clear strategy and a plan to build their peace, then they can influence these foreign actors to some extent. Even if they are not going to fully control them, they can at least influence them. They can bargain with them. They can develop their bargaining power to, pull them toward this, their agenda.
So, as you have said, the definition of the Horn of Africa region by itself is a little bit vague, but what do you think, or how interconnected the sub-regions in terms of peace building? Promoting shared values and the collective tragedy. What do you say regarding this point, sir?
Well, I think I have to first acknowledge the effort is made. For example, by establishing IGAD, COMESA, East African Community, and things like that. Those are a very good step, very good starting point. But personally, I don't believe genuine effort has been made already to interconnect countries in this region. Maybe effort is made to divide them is more significant for me. Look at the countries, for example, in this region. Look at the relationship between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Ethiopia and Eritrea couldn't even able to talk to each other over the last 27 years. The same is true between Djibouti and Eritrea, I guess, Somalia and Djibouti. So the effort is made to divide these countries are more significant than the effort is made to unite them, to interconnect them. You can also see that from the definition itself. Who is the member of the Horn of Africa? Who define who is the member of the Horn of Africa? Who define who should be in and who shouldn't be in? Who define who should be the power, the superpower in the region? These all come from the external agents. External agents who have interest in the region, who want to, securitize the region for their own interest. So the Horn of Africa is usually looked at from a security perspective, from a fragility perspective, from a volatility perspective. And all the effort is made are actually to control violent groups, extremist groups in this region, not to affect their interest in the region. So the regions are not that interconnected. They fail to be a genuinely established group. We call them region, for example, but do they qualify to be that? And who are in the region and who are not in the region is not yet clear. So I think we have a lot to do in front of us to bring these countries in the region to chart their common vision, common goal, to understand their fates together and to act on it. So for me, personally, as far as I'm concerned, this region is not truly a region.
So as you have well described, the Horn region is a multifaceted, volatile, and a very vague region, which is not clearly understood by ourselves even. But as you have said, like there are various demands by foreign actors. So what is your recommendation, or what do you say, or what is needed, or what kind of policy is demanded so as to bring about a prosperous, stable Horn of Africa region?
I think that's a very important question. I don't think I have a full answer for it, but I can speak to a number of things that needs to be done. The first for me is to understand the region itself. What are the basic characteristics of the Horn of Africa? As I said when I make a call to our geopolitical experts to enlighten us as to what it means to be in the Horn of Africa, we need to have that clear understanding of the Horn of Africa. And we have to also understand that the destiny of these countries in the Horn of Africa, is interconnected. If there is anywhere in the world where geographical determinism is in operation, it is in the Horn of Africa. The destiny of countries in the Horn of Africa is very much interconnected. So leaders of these countries need to sit down together and to look at their own situation. And maybe to again question the question I raised earlier, the dilemma, whether the conflict-prone nature of the Horn of Africa is also the result of the fact that it is located in this very strategic part of the world. So they need to chart their destiny together. They need to understand their situation. They need to strategize together, including strategizing how to limit interventionism, because the Horn of Africa is actually, a space of intervention where everybody actually intervenes, where everybody wants to have a stake. where everybody want to engage, where everybody want to have a space, including a military space. This is very dangerous. And the leaders in the region should sit down together, should talk to each other, should chart their destiny together, should strategize together, and increase their bargaining power. At the moment, the bargaining power of states in this region is very limited. That is why they are selling themselves cheap in the political marketplace. If they come together, if they strengthen their bargaining power, given that the developed countries have interest in the region, they can easily bargain with them. They can improve their own situation, including their economic situation, their security status. So they can do a lot of, they can follow strategy like, for example, starting an economic integration in the region, interconnecting the countries with infrastructure, with roads, railways, social services. They can design a common security policy that they implement together and improve the situation in the region. Look, for example, the Togo-Wuchale situation between Somalia and Ethiopia. Look at the refugee crisis in Gambela between Sudan, South Sudan and Ethiopia. Look at the situation between Kenya and Somalia, where Al-Shabaab actually cross border and attack people now and then. The Western power want to intervene in these very internal situations. So if the state, the government is in this region can strengthen themselves and resolve these issues, they can start to slowly build up their bargaining power. Then that is the time when they can ask for what they deserve. So the first thing comes first. We need to understand our situation. We need to understand what we can offer. We need to understand what the others want from us. Then strategize that. And use that as a bargaining power to interact with these superpowers. There is no country in the world who does not have interest in the Horn of Africa. But we are selling that for cheap prices because we didn't understand it very well, or we want to do it in a very cheap way on our own ways. If that changes, I think the situation in the East Africa, in the Horn of Africa, can change.
I believe and I think like Ethiopia is one of the superpower country in the Horn of Africa region. So what is your evaluation like? What is the role of Ethiopia in terms of peace building process in the Horn of Africa region?
Well, the role of Ethiopia is, is and will be very significant, because whether we like it or not, Ethiopia is a superpower in the region. I see that certain countries want to, appoint superpowers now and then. They want to change. Sometimes they want Kenya to be a superpower, the other time they want Sudan to be the superpower. But Ethiopia is naturally a superpower in the region, not only in the region, but in Africa. If you look this route, this Horn route, because it starts from Indian Ocean all the way to Mediterranean, you see two superpowers, Ethiopia and Egypt, and the battle between the two, this water-related conflicts are so challenging because these two are equally, needed by the West. Ethiopia is not superpower only demographically. We are the second most populous country in Africa. That makes us definitely a superpower. But we are also superpower because of our history. We have a very long history. This is the only non-colonized nation in the continent. These all come together, make Ethiopia naturally a superpower. So that also gives Ethiopia the privilege to lead whatever we have been discussing earlier. Ethiopia can lead the countries in the Horn and in the East to come together, to talk to each other, to chart a common vision and destiny. To do that, I think we need first to understand that clearly. This role that we are given by history, this role that we are given by the fact of our demography, this role that we are given because of economy. This is a huge economy. And very strong indigenous social institution. We need to understand that among ourselves. Our politicians should be ready to take on that role. And the second one is we have to also make that clear to the rest of the countries in the region. Or talk to them that, okay, let us do this together. And we can lead on this because of this. It should be based on agreement. But the factors that give you that privilege are already there. So we have to understand that fact first and then discuss with the rest of the countries in the Horn, in Africa, and elsewhere to take a leadership on this. We have been doing this now and then. Historically, Ethiopia has played a significant role in terms of leading African initiatives, starting from establishing the African Union, now championing this African solution for African problems. So we have all the benchmarks, we have all the necessary requirements to continue to do that. But we need to be, more proactive, loud in terms of implementing this. Otherwise, Ethiopia has a very, very significant role in terms of leading this initiative.
I've already finished my question for today, Doctor, because topic by itself is broad, so we need to meet some other time and confer on various topics again and again. I hope our audience will wait for us. But finally, let me give a chance for you. Any message you'd like to deliver for those who are watching this program?
I don't have much to add, but I only want to reiterate myself that we didn't pay enough attention to the region. I mean, we didn't understand the nature of this region as much as the others are doing. As I said earlier, most of the developed countries actually consider the issue of Horn of Africa as their national security agenda. So we need to pay attention to this agenda as well, because that defines who we are. When we understand that we shouldn't necessarily pay attention to our internal matters, we also need to pay attention to our neighboring countries, because their situation also affects us. Our situation affected them. Our destiny is very much interconnected. That's why I said this is a place where geographical determinism is still in operation. So our experts, especially geopolitical experts, should pay more attention, more emphasis to this topic, and should enlighten us as to what we should do in terms of improving our own situation and our neighboring country's situation, and to have a more peaceful and, as you said, prosperous Horn of Africa.
Thank you very much for your precious time, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Well, viewers, this concludes our today's special program that I have produced in connection with the sociology of the Horn of Africa. In connection with, I was joined by Dr. Birhanu Lenjiso. He is a former Deputy Director General of East Africa Research Institute, and currently he is serving as State Minister at the Ministry of Irrigation and Lowlands. He has raised and gave us in-depth analysis in connection with the geopolitical scenario of the Horn of Africa. I hope I will meet him some other time and we will raise several topics in connection with the Horn of Africa's sociology and political situation. Until I come yet with another topic and issue next time, do stay with other programs of ETV. I am Ogayo Mulana. Thank you very much.